This video is sponsored by Card Market. Card Market is Europe's largest online marketplace for trading card games. There is no better place to fulfill all your Yu-Gi-Oh! And card game-based needs. The platform is not only exclusive to only Yu-Gi-Oh!, but also has sections for all other major card games. You can find a link to Card Market down below in the description. And now, without further ado, let's go into the video.
What's up guys, this is Simon from Postcard Gaming, and today I'm going to show off several different Drytron combos under the new Banlist. So if you're not familiar, this deck just finished second at the recent LCS, piloted by Jesse Cotton, who was on a pretty unique build with Vanitys Ruler. There were a lot of different builds that showed up at that event, and there's a lot to kind of discuss, and I think the deck has a ton of potential still to be developed more in this format, so I'll share my thoughts on that. Probably in a separate video. I think it's going to be a two-parter, where in the next video I'll talk about an example deck list and also some tech options and some cards you can side against this deck if you want to stop it. So I haven't recorded that yet. So if you have any preferences for what type of deck you want to see, go ahead and leave that in the comments. But yeah, before I get into the actual combos, there's a couple ruling related things I want to clear up real quick because there's been a lot of conflicting information the past couple days about some of these cards, and so I hope I can help here with some of that. So the first is going to be about this card called Synchro Magnet. People were looking into tuners that can't be normal summon or set, and they saw Synchro Magnet, and they were like, oh, this is a machine, so we can use this for Auroradon, so maybe there's potential here. That actually doesn't work because this card is a pretty old card from like 2010, which doesn't have PSCT, and it is a special summon monster. So if it had updated text, it would look something like Kage no Kage, which has this text where it must first be special summoned by its own effect. Magnet doesn't have this, but it should. And what that means is that you can't actually summon this off of Fibrax because you have to properly summon it first, and that's not possible if it's in the hand or the deck. And if you actually pull up the Yu-Gi-Oh! PD page, for example, you scroll down a bit, it classifies it as a special summon monster. There's also some rulings about it, but you can look more into that if you want. The kind of short version is that you just can't get this off of Fibrax at all, so these combos are unfortunately kind of dead in the water. The next thing I want to talk about are two interactions involving D.D Crow and Ghost Belle in Haunted Mansion, because there was just a lot of misinformation being spread about this at the LCS, and so I want to clear some things up. If you activate the effect of a Drytron card in hand, besides Gamma, so let's just say we activate Zeta in hand in this case, you can never chain Ghost Belle to these if they activate in hand. And the reason is because from the moment you activate Zeta's effect in hand, you can be 100% certain it'll never include an effect that summons anything from the graveyard. And so Belle should not be able to be activated in response to this. And so even if you can get this card into the graveyard somehow after you activate it, so like let's say you chain like Karma Cut or something and you discard it, it just doesn't resolve. It doesn't summon itself back from the grave because that just doesn't make any sense. And so there's no scenario where this summons a card from the grave if you activate it in hand. And the most accurate comparison is a card like the Nightmares. So if Nightmare Phoenix is not co-linked, you can't ash it when you activate its effect. If it is co-linked, you can. And that's because you can tell, again, from the moment of activation, whether this will have an effect to draw a card or not. And if you want to go even further into the documentation, there is actually an explicit ruling on the card Green Baboon, Defender of the Forest, which basically just has an effect that summons itself from hand or grave, which says you can Belle it if it activates in grave, but you can't Belle it if it activates in hand because it doesn't have that effect to summon. And so that should pretty clearly break down this example. And you might be confused, saying, why can't I Ash Shaddoll Fusion or Virtual World City Kowloon? And those cards check on resolution for certain things, and so you can never be sure that they don't contain effects to send a card from the deck to graveyard or whatever. Whereas in this case, again, like I said before, you are immediately sure from the very moment you activate this in hand, this will never have an effect you can Belle. So that's the first distinction I wanted to clear up. The next thing I want to talk about is D.D Crow, or a similar card that removes Benton from the graveyard. If I activate Zeta as Chainlink 1, attributing this Benton as cost, and my opponent chains a card like D.D Crow or Walkero, for example, as Chainlink 2, and removes this Benton from the graveyard before the next chain happens, this Benton doesn't trigger in a new chain. So what happens here is that you tribute a Benton and it goes to graveyard. And so the Benton that meets its activation condition, which is being triggered, is the one in graveyard. Once you banish it, the Benton that's banished is treated as a different card from the one that hit the graveyard and was tributed. So this Benton, quote unquote, doesn't remember being tributed, if that's how you want to think about it. And this is different from the other scenario that people are getting confused about, where a card like Dimensional Shifter is applying. And so the Benton is immediately banished, and that the banished Benton is the same one that was tributed. This is a different case. The key point here is that the Benton that met its activation condition is no longer in the place it's supposed to trigger its effect. And you can check the April revisions page on Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization. If you go down here, for example, it says if a card moves location from its activation location to a different location before the effect activates, you can't activate its effect. And that is exactly what is happening here. So this should be consistent worldwide in any place that is following the April 2020 revisions, which is basically everything. So LCS uses those revisions. The Remote Duel Extravaganza uses those revisions. And it's just important to understand that in this case, you cannot trigger this Benton in a new chain. If it's banished by a card like D.D Crow or Hawkero or Allied Justice Cycle Reader, etc. So those are some important ruling issues I wanted to clear up before going to the actual combos. Now let's go ahead and go into those. This is going to be the first of two really quick Calamities combos, and this is kind of just showing that you can still go with the same fiber route into Calamities as you did with Link Cross, but it's a little harder and requires more bodies. It's going to start, and it's going to overall look very similar to the Calamities combos I showed in the previous video, which was put out before the ban list, and so I'm not going to go too in-depth into these. They're just showing that you can still kind of do this. So we're going to go Alpha Zeta into Benton, and we're going to go into the same Union Carrier play that we did a couple times in the previous video. We'll add Orange Light, Carrier equip Dawn Knight, Meteonus, summon back to the Benton, we'll send Gamma, and then we'll summon back to Gamma, tributing the Benton. And the second Benton trigger will add Valkyria. And then we'll add back Meteonus. So now we have a tuner, we have two Drytrons, and we have an extra body. And those are what's necessary to kind of do this new version of this fiber combo. You have to go into Fibrax and still have two Drytrons on the board in order to go VFD off this. So it is a lot more taxing than before. You'll notice that before there was an opportunity to kind of have, if you open an extra fairy, you would have your combo protected by Orange Light. But in this case, we kind of have to burn both of our Benton searches on Orange Light and then like an extender. So there's a couple ways to get to this point as well. If you open like Nova, you can do it without Valkyria. If you open like Alpha Gamma, you can do it without Valkyria as well. But in general, it's worse than before. It's more fragile and it's more vulnerable to disruption. But if you do get to this point, you would summon Gamma, and now you're just going to hard make Marcher with Gamma and a Drytron, going to Marcher and bring back Gamma, and then with the other Drytron and Fibrax, you just go straight into Auroradon. And this is the same board that you went before. So 3 tokens, and then just go into Krakow, draw 2, banish 3 for Trish, and you make VFD. And so this is the from that point where you got the Fiber and 2 Drytrons, it's the same combo as before, very standard. Similarly, the pre-prep routes from before that go into VFD are also still possible, but if I recall, they also struggle to get kind of the extra necessary extenders on board to make the Calamities in the first place, and that problem is even greater now without Link Cross. So in here, we've started with Zeta and Nova. Nova is going to be kind of an extra body, but it's just one of many ways to get the extender you need. And I'm going to kind of show how that goes. And so we're going to start the same way as pretty much every other combo before. Add Benton off Alpha, and then we can pre-prep for Dawn and Perfection. This is going to be similar as to what I showed before, so I'm not going to go over this in much detail. Trigger Dawn and Benton. We'll add Orange Light. And then we're going to go Zeta, adding back Meteonus, and then we're going to go into the same carrier plays before to give us an extra fairy for this Perfection. So Carrier Dawn, bring back Benton, dump Gamma, and then bring back Gamma, trigger Benton again. This Benton is going to be just our fodder for Perfection. We're going to add back Meteonus, and then normal Orange Light, and now we're going to make Fiber. So this is the same Fiber plus 2 Drytron board as the first combo, and then we have the Herald of Perfection just kind of sitting here. We'll summon Gamma and hard make Marcher, and normally you would burn like a Cyber's Integrator here, but you can't actually do that now because you won't be able to make a Rodon, so you have to kind of just skip your Marcher effect, which is very suboptimal in this list. There's not much you can do. So we're going to directly go Fibrax and the other Drytron into Auroradon, summon 3 tokens, and then 2 tokens in the Marcher. We're going to make Krakow, draw 2. And you need an extender here, and so we've searched Valkyria before. You can just summon Valkyria and then banish Valkyria plus Auroradon and the last token to go into Fusion Trish. And then this is also something I showed off in the last video. You can trigger Valkyria when it's banished here, and you can dump another Drytron name for the next turn. and then just make Calamities. So it is the same thing, but you need extra bodies, and overall these are still possible, but they're kind of just worse in less format. But they're still definitely playable. I know players like I think Dagda, for instance, at the LCS was playing a build with Calamities. So it is still kind of viable going into this format, but it may not be the best option going forward because of how fragile it is. This is the third combo in the video, and it's going to involve Vanitys Ruler and also Raditz Dragoon. From these combos forward in the video, I'm going to be kind of taking my time a little more, explaining what's going on, because they don't involve Calamities anymore, and I'm not just kind of rehashing the same old ground as before. So this is also going to be off Alpha Zeta, so again, this is kind of, I think, the standard hand, but some of these combos later on are going to be off a little more lucrative hands. In this case, we're going to go Alpha Zeta into Benten. This is all just kind of old hat. Zeta tribute to Benten, add Meteonis, add another Benten, and we're going to do the carrier play again, equip Dawn, and then Meteonis back Benten, sending Gamma. And so this is where things start to diverge a little bit. We're going to tribute the Benten in hand for Gamma, not the one on field. And we'll bring back Gamma and any of the Drytron, trigger the Benten rather, and we'll add Vanitys Ruler. So at this point, you've done more than 5 summons, and your opponent is going to be kind of fearing this Vanitys Ruler. And so sometimes they'll panic, and they'll drop Nibiru here because they don't want you to have monsters to kind of tribute for Ruler. What you can do in that case is, because Benten triggers whenever attributed by any means, you can trigger the Benten off the Nibiru, and you grab either, like Manju or Chaos Valkyria, and you just turn the token into a Link Spider, and then you go straight into Dragoon, and you pop their Nibiru. Because you could go like Chaos Valkyria and then tribute the token in Valkyria for Ruler, but then you have a 2500 Vanitys Ruler against a 3000 attack Nibiru, and it's kind of pointless. So you can just very easily Dragoon through Nibiru, and if you have like enough like Drytron cards that extend, you can still Dragoon and Ruler through Nibiru, which is very nice. In Jesse's build, he only played Ruler and he didn't play the Dragoon package. And so it is true that a ton of your hands just don't care about Nibiru, but the ones where you do get Nibiru, they mentioned you have to do some kind of awkward routing involving Natasha typically, and you have to Natasha take the Nibiru so your Ruler doesn't just get run over by it. So that would be one kind of benefit of playing the Dragoon package in this deck, is that you can just very easily kind of trivially extend through a Nibiru on your cards, and you can just get rid of it. And again, with the right extenders, if you had like another Drytron, if you had Nova or something, following all this, you would still be able to Dragoon plus Ruler through a Nib. But if you don't get Nibiru'd, it's very simple. You just add back your spell, turn your 2 Dries into Verte, and then activate Verte effect, send your Dragoon pieces, and summon Dragoon. Also important to note that you should be summoning your cards now kind of in this right extra monster zone to play around Geonator. Basically any zone except the center zone and this leftmost zone will play around Geonator, and so that's important to note. Verte restricts you from special summoning, but you can still normal summon, so you just kind of tribute over Benten and Verte for Vanitys Ruler. And you can add whatever. You can add Manju. You can also add Lancia, which is something that Jesse was doing a lot. He cycled through a lot of different fairies for Benten, and getting Lancia is just very nice and secure against a lot of decks. Especially the Virtual World matchup, because Virtual World has Qinglong to negate your Ruler, and if you Lancia them, then they can't Qinglong your Ruler, which is actually super, super relevant, because it means you can Dragoon other cards that actually matter instead of being forced to Dragoon like S-City or something. So yeah, that's gonna kind of wrap it up for this one. It's very simple, low investment way to get into Ruler plus Dragoon with either follow-up or a search Lancia for next turn. To close out the video, there's going to be 2 Megalith combos, which I think have a lot of potential. They're very cool in the way that they interact with cards like Benten, and I think they have kind of the most room to be explored out of all the ritual options that that Drytron has. And there's some pros and cons. One of them is similar to kind of the issue that I had with pre-prep, which is that you don't want to see Megaliths without your Drytron cards, and you're also kind of blowing your searches on Megalith cards instead of other cards like more Bentens. So it could end up that they're just not the best option, but there's a lot of different directions you can take the deck if you do play Megaliths. So the first is going to be more of a conservative combo, and then the second is going to be the turn skip combo, which I think is just too cool not to show. So this one is going to be off Zeta plus Nova. It's going to be a little better than Zeta Alpha. This will give you an extra body. You would just cut the extra body for weaker hands or hands that get hand trapped or whatever, you'll see that this will end on like an IP or something, and so you can just like remove the IP from the end board. It's not too important. But starting off, you're going to just Nova for Alpha, and we're going to start with the same carrier plays before, so I'll go very quickly through this. We'll get Benten, Tribute Benten for Meteonis, grab Manju, and then we'll go Carrier Dawn Knight. And now we're going to summon Manju first, and Manju is going to grab Megalith full. And we want to do this because we're not going to Meteonis back to Benten, we're actually going to Meteonis out the full from hand immediately. So we're going to tribute the carrier for full, and then we'll trigger both Dawn Knight and full in a new chain. Dawn Knight will send Gamma, and full will add back Benten. And so that's kind of the strength of full, is that you get, first of all, the ritual effect is very nice to toolbox it from deck, and then also it just recurs Benten, and so you just get more triggers at this card for free. So we're going to tribute this Benten for the Gamma in the graveyard, bring back whatever we want, and then the Benten will add another Benten. So I forgot to do that here, just ignore that. So add a Benten off Benten, and then we'll add back the Meteonis, targeting either one of these, doesn't really matter. And now we're going to go with this route into Artifact Dagda. So this is something cool that I did see being run at the LCS. I think, again, Dagger was playing this, but Dagger was also playing like every single engine in his Drytron build. So the guy's insane. Basically, the idea behind Dagda is that you set Artifact Scythe. And Scythe is very nice because it plays around a lot of common, I guess, board breakers. So stuff like Dark Ruler no more, Scythe would just play around that. And it makes it so that, if the Vanitys Ruler build that Jesse played catches on and people start citing cards like Dark Ruler, then you can adapt and play something like this to kind of punish those changes. So we're going to trigger Full, and we're going to chain Dagda, setting Artifact Scythe from deck. Full will tribute the Benten, and we'll grab Ophiel, and then we'll trigger both effects of Ophiel and Benten. Ophiel will grab Bethor, and Benten will grab Chaos Valkyria. So there's a lot of different level 4s you can play. So Manju is 4, Ophiel is 4, Valkyria is also 4. And in this particular build, we're going to make Tornado Dragon. This is what we use to pop this Artifact Scythe. If you didn't go this Dagda route and you went like a Verte, or if you made an IP or something, then you can make Dweller very easily. Dweller is really, really good in the mirror, for example. Dweller also has utility against decks like Elflich and even Virtual Rule to an extent. So either of these rank 4s are just nice for disruption and just as general toolbox options. But if you're going the Scythe route, you have to go for Tornado. We're going to summon Chaos Valkyria, and then we're going to go Valkyria and the other Drytron into IP. And we're just going to pass on this. In their draw phase, you can Tornado, popping the Scythe, and then the Scythe brings itself back, and they are now locked out of the extra deck for the turn. And then at some point during the main phase, you're going to use IP to link summon into Apollo. This could also be like a Nightmare Unicorn or something, but Apollo is just nice here. And then finally, your last disruption is this Megalith Full, which you contribute the Bethor in hand to summon another Bethor from deck. And we have 1, 2, 3 rituals in graveyard with different names, and so this Bethor will pop up to 3 cards. So you have coverage against a whole lot of things. This should just win you the game outright, and you even have the Full for next turn if you end up having more tribute fodder. So yeah, you'll pop through with this, and this is just going to be your end board. This is, again, kind of one of the simpler Megalith routes. There's plenty of other end boards you could have. You can play Dweller, like I said, you can play Dragoon with this kind of build. And there's a whole lot of directions you can take Megalith cards in, so I'm kind of excited to see where that goes going forward. This last combo is going to be the turn skip combo. It's pretty infamous at this point, so you may have already seen it. I know that, for example, Yasin's channel has covered this, a couple different routes to get to the turn skip combo. A lot of people were doing this with fiber, but you really don't need the fiber bricks to do this at all, and so it's just a lot more efficient to get these off Megalith cards, and I'm just going to go ahead and show that. So this is going to be Alpha, Zeta, and any one of Benten, Fool, or Ember Factor. You have ways to get to all 3 of these, so you just need to open one of them. And there's, again, many other hands to get here. I'm just going to show this one. I'm going to start the same way, going Alpha, Zeta into the kind of the classic stuff that we've already done. Alpha will get a second one of these 3 names. And then we're going to go Zeta, tribute the Benten, get Meteonis, we'll get Manju as well, and then just the carrier play into Dawn Knight. So this is like the 12th time you've seen this already. We'll normal Manju, and this will get the last name. So we have all 3 names guaranteed at this point. You got 1 in your opening hand, and then 1 of Alpha, 1 of Manju. So The rest of the combo is the same no matter what your starting hand was. You're going to Meteonis for full. Full will add Benten, and the Dane will dump Gamma. And then we'll tribute the Benten in hand to bring back Gamma and any other Drytron. The Benten will add another Benten, and it will add back the original spell. So this starts the exact same way as the Megalith combo I just showed, and it's going to start branching around now. We're going to use full effect, tributing the Benten in hand to get Ophiel. And we're going to trigger both Ophiel and Benten is going to grab Solar Purity and Light. So this is a weird card, but it's run a lot in these types of combos, and you could even play it in like a Megalith Drytron deck that doesn't turn skip. It's just you abuse the fact that full copies the level of the ritual monster you add back. So this full is now level 6 because Benton's level 6. And we're going to overlay it with the Solar Purity and Light for a rank 6. This Ophiel is going to add Megalith Ouch, Shadows to DB Grinder. If you just need any level 4 Megalith to tribute with Ophiel to summon this level 8 Armor Factor. So yeah, proceeding, we're going to turn this into Link Rebo. This is optional, and then Link Rebo Manju into Barricade Board. And then we're going to banish. This should be 2 lights. I'm not sure why I thought this was a chaos card, but this should just be Manju and Dagda. We'll banish both for Solar Purity and Light. And then we'll overlay with this full for Beatrice. And this is how we're going to access the trap card that effectively skips their turn. So we're going to detach and dump Thunder Ruler. So I mentioned in the deck profile that you could use Parthian Shot, which is a counter trap that you activate at the end of the battle phase, and it makes it become the end phase. This is very similar. It does pretty much the same thing, and they both lose the same stuff. So like Cosmic Cyclone are cards that they both lose to. Basically, you go into their during their standby phase, you activate it and you skip their battle phase. And because Ember Factor skips their main phase 1, they have to go straight from main phase 1 to end phase. So it basically just has the turn skip in the same way. So this could also be Parthian Shot. Doesn't really matter. We're going to turn Barricade and the Zeta into Auroradon, summoning 3 tokens, and we're going to use Auroradon's probably least frequently used effect is this third effect. You tribute 3 cards, and then you add back a trap from your graveyard. So we'll just tribute the 3 tokens we just summoned, add back 3, and we'll add back a Thunder Ruler, rather. And finally, we use Ophiel. We'll tribute itself and Ouch, and we'll summon Ember Factor, use Ember Factor, and then during their standby, we'll flip Thunder Ruler, and we pray we don't get Cosmic Cyclone during their draw phase. And this is the turn skip. And then this sets up also 3 Drytron names in grave for the next turn, so it's really, really trivial to just kill them. You would just tribute the Ember Factor, and from then on, you can just like flood the field and easily do 8,000 damage, since they have nothing on the board at that point. So yeah, that's gonna wrap up the combo video. I'm pretty sure. Expect to see, I would say, deck profile in maybe a day or 2. Again, leave comments in terms of what you want to see. I'm probably not going to show off the turn skip variant because I think it's a little too janky for my taste. And currently, I'm leaning toward a deck list with the Megaliths in it because I think it's the most interesting option of everything that's out there. And you can also I'm sure there's plenty of videos already for Jesse's deck, and Duelist Academy also explained their thoughts on that deck as well. So I don't want to retread too much old ground. But yeah, look out for that in a few days. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Check out our sponsor, Card Market. And I'll see you in the next one.